Your little crafts shop is just a hobby, honey. Let the men handle the real business decisions. Jack's words cut through the chatter at our family barbecue, followed by that familiar condescending chuckle that made my stomach turn. I gripped my wine glass tighter, forcing a smile as our friends and relatives awkwardly shifted in their seats. I'm Gloria, and that's my husband of 5 years explaining to everyone why he just emptied our joint savings account for cryptocurrency investments without consulting me. The same account I'd been contributing to from my little hobby, a jewelry design business I'd built from scratch. Tell them about your latest investment, Jack, his sister Amy urged, clearly trying to change the subject. But I already knew what was coming. Actually, I just dropped 50 grand on this amazing new crypto opportunity, he announced, puffing out his chest. My broker says it's guaranteed to triple in value by next quarter. That's how you make real money, not selling trinkets to bored housewives. I watched the ice cubes melt in my glass, remembering the moment I'd checked our account balance that morning. 5 years of savings, gone. Just like that. Gloria's pieces are beautiful though, my friend Sarah interjected. I wear that moonstone necklace she made me everywhere. Thanks, Sarah, I said, but Jack was already talking over me. Sure, they're cute. But let's be real, it's not a serious business. Gloria needs to understand that some of us work in the real world, making real investments. He turned to his friend Mike, a hedge fund manager. You should see our garage, it's like a craft store exploded in there. The laughter that followed felt like sandpaper on my skin. What Jack didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the hobby he loved to mock had a secret. For the past year, I'd been selling my designs to high-end boutiques under a different brand name, Luna and Sage. The garage he complained about wasn't just my workshop, it was the headquarters of a rapidly growing jewelry line that was catching the attention of fashion editors across the country. How about I grab the dessert? I offered, desperate for a moment alone. In the kitchen, I pulled out my phone and checked my business email. 3 new orders from luxury boutiques in Los Angeles. A request for a custom collection from a shop in Miami. And an inquiry about wholesale pricing from a major department store. Need help? Sarah appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. I'm fine, I said, but my voice cracked. No, you're not. She closed the door behind her. Why do you let him talk to you like that? I pulled the apple pie from the fridge, buying time before answering. It's complicated. It's really not, Sarah countered. You're talented, Gloria. Your jewelry is amazing. Jack's just too blind to see it. If only she knew. Last month, Luna and Sage had made more money than Jack's entire quarterly bonus. But I wasn't ready to reveal that yet. Sometimes, silence is the best revenge. The sliding door opened, and Jack's voice boomed through the kitchen. Gloria, Mike wants to see those craft supplies you've been wasting money on. Show him why I had to take control of our finances. Something snapped inside me. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was years of suppressed anger, but I turned to face him. You know what, Jack? Why don't you show Mike your crypto portfolio instead? I'm sure he'd love to hear about your guaranteed returns. The room fell silent. Jack's face reddened. Don't start with that attitude. I'm trying to secure our future while you play with beads in the garage. I placed the pie on the counter with deliberate calm. You're right, Jack. It is just a hobby. I smiled, thinking about the contract I'd just signed with an exclusive Beverly Hills boutique. Just a silly little hobby. Later that night, after our guests had left and Jack had passed out on the couch, I sat in my garage workshop. My fingers traced the delicate curves of my latest design, a sophisticated pendant that would retail for more than Jack's monthly car payment. My phone buzzed with an email notification, another order from a boutique in New York. I opened my laptop and logged into my secret business account. The numbers made me smile. Let Jack have his crypto dreams. While he was gambling our savings away, I was building something real, something lasting. And soon enough, everyone would know it. But for now, I'd keep playing the role he expected, the naive wife with her cute little hobby. Because sometimes the sweetest victory is the one they never see coming. The bell above my shop door chimed as another customer walked in. I looked up from my workbench, where I was putting the finishing touches on a custom order, and saw a well-dressed woman in her 30s browsing my display cases. "These pieces are stunning," she said, leaning closer to examine a rose quartz necklace. "The craftsmanship reminds me of..." She paused, squinting at the jewelry. "Actually, they look quite similar to Luna and Sage. Are you familiar with their work?" My heart skipped a beat. "I've heard of them," I replied carefully, setting down my tools. "What brings you to our neighborhood?" "I'm Rachel, the buyer for Luxe Boutique on Rodeo Drive," she said, extending her hand. "We carry Luna and Sage, and I've been trying to get in touch with their designer for weeks. They're our best-selling jewelry line right now." I shook her hand, fighting to keep my expression neutral. Luxe Boutique was one of the most exclusive stores in Beverly Hills, and one of my biggest wholesale clients under my secret brand. My phone buzzed. A text from Jack, meeting my crypto guys for dinner. "Don't wait up. By the way, did you really need to order more supplies? Our credit card bill is ridiculous." I ignored the message and turned back to Rachel. "Actually, I'm glad you're here. There's something I need to tell you." 30 minutes later, Rachel was sitting at my workbench, examining my portfolio with wide eyes. I knew it. The signature wire wrapping technique, the geometric patterns, it all makes sense now. But why keep it a secret? I gestured around my modest shop. Sometimes you need to protect something while it grows. The Luna and Sage brand needed to succeed on its own merits, not as someone's side project. "Well, it's definitely succeeded," Rachel said, pulling out her tablet. "Our clients are obsessed. In fact, I came here today hoping to find new local artists, but instead..." She smiled. "How would you feel about doubling your order volume with us?" Just then, my shop door chimed again. Sarah walked in, carrying 2 coffee cups. "Thought you could use a pick-me-up after last night's disaster." She stopped short when she saw Rachel. "Oh, sorry. I didn't realize you had a client." "Perfect timing," I said, taking the coffee. "Sarah, meet Rachel from Luxe Boutique." "Rachel, this is my friend Sarah, and actually, she's wearing one of my pieces right now." Rachel studied the delicate moonstone necklace around Sarah's neck. "That's Luna and Sage's signature moonstone pendant." "But I thought..." Her eyes widened with understanding. "Oh my God." Sarah looked between us, confused. "Luna and what? Should I tell her, or should you?" Rachel asked with a knowing smile. I took a deep breath. "Sarah, remember how you've been telling me to stand up for myself? Well, there's something you should know about my little hobby." As I explained everything, Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to joy. "Gloria, you brilliant, sneaky genius. But wait, does Jack know?" "Jack's too busy with his crypto meetings to notice what's happening in his own garage," I said, just as my phone buzzed again with another text from him. "Just invested another 20K. This one's going to the moon. Rocket." Rachel cleared her throat. "Speaking of investments, shall we discuss that purchase order? And I'd love to feature your new collection in our front window display next month." We spent the next hour finalizing details, and by the time Rachel left, I'd secured my largest order to date. Sarah stayed behind, still shaking her head in amazement. "I can't believe you've been pulling this off right under his nose," she said. "But Gloria, you have to tell him eventually." "I will," I replied, returning to my workbench. "When the time is right." "And when's that?" I picked up a piece I'd been working on, a complex, interconnected design that would become part of my next collection. "When he's ready to see me as an equal, not just his wife with a cute hobby." Sarah grabbed her purse to leave but paused at the door. Just promise me one thing? When it all comes out, I want a front row seat to watch Jack eat his words. After she left, I logged into my business account to check the latest sales figures. The numbers made me smile. My little hobby had just cleared 6 figures for the 3rd month in a row. My phone buzzed one more time. Jack again, great news. My crypto guy says we should double down on our investment. Can you move some money from your checking account to ours? Just temporary. I texted back, sorry, honey. Spent it all on craft supplies. Face blowing a kiss. Then I turned back to my workbench, where my next masterpiece was waiting to be born. Let him chase his digital dreams. My success was being built in the real world, one piece at a time, right under his nose. The first thing I noticed when I walked into our kitchen was Jack's manic energy. He was pacing, running his hands through his hair, talking rapidly into his phone. My stomach tightened. I'd seen this behavior before, usually right before he made a terrible decision. It's a sure thing, he was saying. We need to act fast. The market's about to explode. He noticed me and held up one finger, signaling me to wait. I set my shop keys on the counter and started making coffee, trying to ignore the dread building in my chest. Done. Jack ended his call with a triumphant grin. Baby, I just made the move that's going to change our lives. What did you do? My hand trembled slightly as I poured the coffee. I liquidated our savings account. All of it. Put everything into this new crypto coin that's about to go viral. He grabbed my shoulders, eyes wild with excitement. We're talking potential returns of 1,000%. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. You did what? I know, it sounds crazy. But my guy has insider information. This is bigger than Bitcoin. We're getting in on the ground floor. I stepped away from him, coffee spreading across the tile like a dark stain. Jack, that was our emergency fund. Our safety net. How could you make that decision without talking to me? Because you wouldn't understand. You're too busy playing with your jewelry to see the big picture. He pulled out his phone, showing me graphs and charts. Look at these projections. Stop. I slammed my hand on the counter. That was my money too. I contributed to that account. With what? Your craft fair earnings? He scoffed. Gloria, I make more in bonuses than your shop makes in a year. I'm trying to secure our future here. If only he knew that my last Luna and Sage collection had earned more than his annual salary. But rage and hurt were choking the words in my throat. My phone buzzed, an email notification from Vogue's accessories editor requesting an interview about Luna and Sage's meteoric rise in the luxury jewelry market. The irony made me want to scream. How much? I managed to ask. How much did you take? All of it. 120,000. He said it so casually, like he was ordering takeout. But don't worry, by next month it could be worth millions. I grabbed my keys from the counter. I need some air. Where are you going? We should be celebrating. Celebrating? I spun around. You just gambled away our entire savings without even talking to me. I'm your wife, Jack, not some spectator in your get-rich-quick schemes. Oh, come on. At least I'm doing something to improve our situation. What are you doing? Sitting in that little shop all day, playing businesswoman? The words hit like physical blows. I walked to the door, then paused. You know what the difference is between us, Jack? While you're chasing fantasies, I'm building something real. Something that will last. Real? He laughed. Wake up, Gloria. The world is changing. Crypto is the future. Your little beaded necklaces are hardly going to fund our retirement. I opened the door, but he wasn't finished. And by the way, I saw your supply receipts. $3,000 last month? Are you trying to bankrupt us? Those supplies had generated over $40,000 in wholesale orders, but he'd never bothered to ask about my business finances. I stepped outside without responding, letting the door slam behind me. In my car, I pulled out my phone and opened my business email. The Vogue interview request sat there, along with 3 new wholesale orders and an invitation to showcase Luna and Sage at Paris Fashion Week. My personal checking account, the one Jack didn't know about, showed a healthy 6-figure balance. I'd been saving too, just not in ways he could understand or control. A text from Sarah popped up, "Drinks tonight? You look like you needed an escape earlier." I replied, "Meet me at the shop in 20. Bring wine." Everything's falling apart, but also coming together. As I drove toward my shop, another email arrived. This one made my heart stop, a message from Maya Chen's stylist, saying the international pop star had seen Luna and Sage pieces in Luxe Boutique and wanted to schedule a private shopping appointment. I pulled over, hands shaking as I read the email 3 times. Maya Chen, whose Instagram posts could make or break brands, whose style influenced millions of followers. My phone buzzed again. "Jack, don't be mad, baby. When this investment pays off, you can have all the craft supplies you want." I put my phone on silent and pulled back onto the road. Let him live in his crypto dreams. Reality was about to hit him harder than he could imagine, and I wouldn't have to lift a finger to make it happen. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. And sometimes it walks right into your jewelry shop wearing 6-inch heels and has 50 million Instagram followers. The bell above my shop door chimed, and I nearly dropped the inventory clipboard I was holding. Maya Chen, the Maya Chen, stood in my doorway, wearing oversized sunglasses and a Luna and Sage geometric pendant I'd designed last season. "Are you Gloria?" She removed her sunglasses, revealing a warm smile. "Your pieces are absolutely incredible. I literally haven't taken this necklace off since I bought it at Luxe." Behind her, Sarah, who was helping me that day, made a small choking sound. "Yes, I'm Gloria," I managed to say, trying to maintain my composure. "Welcome to my shop." Maya's stylist, Jen, stepped in after her. "We were thrilled to discover you're the designer behind Luna and Sage. Maya's been obsessed with the brand for months. The craftsmanship is unreal," Maya added, already moving toward a display case. "Oh my God, is this from the new collection?" She pointed to a rose gold and moonstone piece I'd finished yesterday. "It is," I said, moving to unlock the case. "Would you like to try it on?" The next hour flew by in a blur. Maya tried on piece after piece, asking detailed questions about my design process and materials. She was genuinely interested, not just shopping for show. "I have to ask," she said, admiring a complex chandelier earring in the mirror. "Why keep your identity secret? Luna and Sage is huge in the fashion world right now." Before I could answer, the shop door chimed again. Jack walked in, his face buried in his phone. "Gloria, have you seen the crypto markets today? We need to talk about Dash." He looked up and froze. Maya turned around, still wearing my earrings. "Oh my gosh, are you Gloria's husband? You must be so proud." I was just telling my stylist that Gloria's work is revolutionizing contemporary jewelry design. The Luna and Sage pieces are Dash. "The what pieces?" Jack interrupted, looking confused. The room went silent. Sarah suddenly became very interested in reorganizing a drawer of chains. "Luna and Sage," Maya repeated slowly. "Your wife's jewelry line? The one that's been featured in every major fashion magazine this year?" Jack's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock. "Gloria's shop is called Handmade by Gloria." "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath. "Jack, maybe we should discuss this Dash." "Oh no," Maya said, covering her mouth. "Did I just?" "I'm so sorry, I assumed he knew." Knew what? Jack demanded. Gloria, what's going on? Just then, Jen's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and gasped. Maya, look. She turned her phone screen toward us. It showed Maya's latest Instagram post, a selfie she'd taken earlier wearing my new rose gold piece, captioned, "Secrets Out." The genius behind Luna and Sage is small business owner Gloria. Supporting independent female designers and loving every piece in her collection gemstone sparkles #women in business #Luna and Sage. The post already had over 100,000 likes. This is perfect timing actually, Maya said, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Vogue wants to do a feature on you next month, and now we can use your real name and shop location. Jack grabbed my arm. Can we talk? Privately? Actually, I said, gently removing his hand, I'm with clients right now. We can talk at home. Clients? He laughed incredulously. Gloria, what kind of game are you playing? Maya stepped forward, her celebrity confidence in full force. Sir, your wife is one of the most talented jewelry designers in the industry right now. Luna and Sage pieces are sold in luxury boutiques worldwide. Surely you knew. Jack's phone chose that moment to buzz. He pulled it out, and his face went pale. The crypto market was crashing. I need some air, he muttered, rushing out of the shop. I am so sorry, Maya said once he'd gone. I really thought he knew. It's okay, I replied, surprising myself by how calm I felt. It was time for the truth to come out anyway. Maya ended up buying 8 pieces, including the rose gold earrings. Before leaving, she turned to me. For what it's worth, I think you're incredible. Building this empire right under everyone's noses? That takes serious skill. After they left, Sarah locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. Are you okay? She asked. I checked my phone. The Luna and Sage business account was blowing up with notifications. Maya's post had gone viral, and orders were flooding in. Meanwhile, Jack had sent 15 texts, each more frantic than the last. I'm better than okay, I said, looking around my little shop, the place Jack had dismissed as a hobby, now about to become known as the birthplace of a luxury jewelry empire. I think it's finally time to step into the spotlight. Sarah poured 2 glasses of emergency wine we kept in the back. To karma, she said, raising her glass. To karma, I agreed, and to never hiding your light to make someone else comfortable. My phone buzzed again. Jack, we need to talk about the crypto crash. And what the hell is Luna and Sage? I put my phone away and took another sip of wine. He'd figure it out soon enough. I found Jack sitting in our dark kitchen, illuminated only by his laptop screen. Empty coffee cups and crumpled papers surrounded him like the aftermath of a storm. It's gone, he said without looking up. All of it. The crypto market crashed. Everything we had, just gone. I flicked on the lights. You mean everything you took from our joint account without asking me? He finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. This isn't the time for that, Gloria. We're ruined. And meanwhile, you've been living some kind of double life? Luna and Sage? Really? I set my bag down and pulled out my tablet. Since we're talking about finances, let me show you something. I opened my business accounting software and turned the screen toward him. His eyes widened at the numbers. That can't be right. Last month's revenue, I said. And here's the projection for next quarter, after Maya Chen's Instagram post. I swiped to the next screen. He pushed back from the table. This is a joke, right? These numbers, they're more than my annual salary. The Vogue feature comes out next week, I continued. And Paris Fashion Week wants Luna and Sage as a featured designer. Stop, he held up his hand. Just stop. I lost everything today, and now you're telling me that your little bead shop is worth millions? Not the bead shop. Luna and Sage. The brand you mocked as my little hobby while you were gambling away our savings. His laptop pinged with another notification. He glanced at it and groaned. My crypto broker just filed for bankruptcy. They're saying there's evidence of fraud. How much did you lose in total? Everything. The savings, my bonus, and... He swallowed hard. I took out a loan against my 401k. I sat down across from him, letting that sink in. Outside, a car alarm went off, its wailing eerily appropriate for the moment. I need your help, Gloria, he finally said. Just a small loan to tide us over. Once the market recovers. There is no us in this situation, Jack. You made these decisions alone. You can face the consequences alone. But you're my wife. And clearly, he gestured at my tablet, you have the means to help. We're supposed to support each other. Like you supported me? I pulled out my phone and played a video Sarah had recorded at the family barbecue. His voice rang out, it's not a serious business. Gloria needs to understand that some of us work in the real world. He winced. I was wrong, okay? I admit it. I should have taken your work seriously. It's not about taking my work seriously, Jack. It's about respect. Partnership. Things you clearly don't understand. My phone buzzed, an email from Vogue asking for a final approval on the feature layout. The headline read, Luna and Sage, the secret success story taking the fashion world by storm. Let me invest in your company, Jack said suddenly. I have experience in finance. I could help manage Actually, I cut him off, there's something interesting in my business contracts. I pulled out a document from my bag. Section 7.3. The company cannot enter into financial arrangements with any individual who has previously attempted to undermine or discredit the business or its owner. What are you saying? I'm saying that legally, I couldn't give you a loan or accept an investment from you even if I wanted to. Which I don't. He slumped in his chair. So that's it? You're just going to watch me drown? The way you watched me struggle? The way you belittled my dreams? The way you took our savings without a second thought? His phone pinged again. More bad news about the crypto crash, judging by his expression. I have a meeting with my accountant tomorrow, I said, standing up. She's helping me separate our finances completely. I suggest you start looking for a good bankruptcy lawyer. Gloria, please. Oh, and Jack? I'm moving into the guest room. I need space to prepare for my Vogue interview. As I turned to leave, he called out, I really messed up, didn't I? I paused at the door. You know what the funny thing is? While you were chasing get-rich-quick schemes, I was building something real. Something lasting. And I did it right under your nose, because you were too arrogant to even notice. What am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem anymore. But here's some free advice. Next time you have a partner, try respecting them. It's cheaper than crypto. I left him there in the kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of his financial dreams, while upstairs, my laptop pinged with another wholesale order for Luna and Sage. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock, it kicks the door down and makes itself at home. Please, just hear me out, Jack pleaded, following me around my shop as I arranged new displays. I've been talking to some investors. They're interested in crypto recovery funds, and if you could just loan me the startup capital. The answer is no, Jack. I carefully placed a new necklace in the window display. And you need to stop coming to my shop like this. I have a meeting with Vogue in 20 minutes. This is different from last time. I've done the research, calculated the risks. The bell chimed as Sarah walked in, carrying 2 coffee cups and a magazine. She stopped short when she saw Jack. Oh. You're here. Again. Sarah, he nodded tersely. This is a private conversation between my wife and Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected him. The papers are being finalized next week. Sarah handed me a coffee and held up the magazine. Speaking of papers, look what just hit the stands. There it was, the Vogue feature. A full spread showing my jewelry, my workshop, my story. The headline read, "The Secret Queen of Modern Luxury, How Gloria Built a Jewelry Empire in Plain Sight." Jack snatched the magazine. This is actually really good publicity." His expression shifted. "Gloria, think about it, with your brand recognition and my business expertise dash. Are you serious right now?" Sarah interrupted. "You lost all her money in a crypto scam, and now you want to manage her successful business? I made a mistake, okay? I'm trying to make it right. By asking for more money?" I took the magazine back from him. "The answer is no, Jack. Not just no, but legally impossible. Remember the contract clause? That's just a technicality. We could work around it dash. Like you worked around asking my permission before emptying our savings?" I set down my coffee. "Let me be very clear, I will not loan you money. I will not invest in your schemes. And I absolutely will not let you anywhere near my company. Our marriage counselor said we need to work on communication dash. I stopped going to counseling 3 weeks ago," I said. "Right after I found out you'd been hiding more crypto losses from me." The bell chimed again. A woman in designer clothes walked in, then stopped to stare. "Oh my God, are you Gloria? I just read your Vogue feature. I'm obsessed with Luna and Sage." Jack's face darkened. "I'll come back later when dash." "No," I cut him off. "You won't. Sarah, can you please show my husband out? And Jack?" I waited until he looked at me. "If you come to my shop again, I'll have to get a restraining order." Sarah practically pushed him toward the door. Through the window, I watched him walk to his car, not the luxury sedan he used to drive, but a used Honda he'd had to buy after the crypto crash. "Your newest collection is stunning," the customer was saying, admiring a display case. "I can't believe you created all this while dealing with, well, I read about your husband in the article. That must have been awful." I managed a professional smile. Sometimes the biggest obstacles lead to the greatest successes. After the customer left with 3 pieces, Sarah locked the door for my Vogue interview prep. "You okay?" she asked. "That's the 3rd time this week he's shown up." "I'm fine. Just tired of him trying to capitalize on my success after spending years mocking it." My phone buzzed, an email from my lawyer, "Divorce papers ready for final review. Also, Mr. Chen's legal team is requesting a meeting about his proposed investment in your crypto recovery fund venture. Advised them of Section 7.3 restrictions." "He's contacting my lawyers now?" I showed Sarah the email. "Desperate much?" She shook her head. "Want me to stay for the Vogue interview?" "No, I've got this. But first." I pulled out my phone and drafted a text to Jack. "Stop contacting my lawyers. Stop coming to my shop. Stop trying to find ways around the contract. It's over, both our marriage and any possibility of a business relationship. I've instructed my legal team to proceed with the restraining order if you continue." Sarah read over my shoulder as I hit send. Harsh. But necessary. "Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind," I said, straightening my desk for the interview. "Or in this case, cruel to be legally compliant." My phone buzzed one last time. "Jack, you'll regret this. The crypto market will recover, and you'll wish you'd invested when you had the chance." I deleted the message without responding. Through my shop window, I could see the photographer for Vogue setting up equipment on the sidewalk. The sunlight caught my display cases, making the jewelry sparkle. "Ready for your close-up?" Sarah asked. I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come from the woman who used to hide her success to protect her husband's ego. "More than ready." It's time to shine. The conference room at my lawyer's office felt too small for the tension it contained. Jack sat across from me, looking nothing like the confident man who used to mock my little hobby. His suit was wrinkled, his tie slightly askew. "Before we finalize the divorce," he said, "I need to say something." My lawyer, Rebecca, started to object, but I held up my hand. "Let him speak." "I saw your jewelry in the window at Bergdorf's yesterday," Jack said quietly. "Right next to Cartier. Your window display was bigger than theirs." I waited, wondering where this was going. "Remember when we first met? You were making jewelry on your coffee table in that tiny apartment. I told you it was cute." He laughed bitterly. "Cute? I called your dream cute while you were building an empire." Jack dash. "No, please. Let me finish." He pulled something from his pocket, a crumpled magazine page from my Vogue feature. "I've read this article probably 50 times. There's this quote from you: 'Success isn't about quick wins or lucky breaks. It's about showing up every day, believing in yourself when no one else does, and building something real.'" Rebecca checked her watch pointedly. "The thing is," Jack continued, "I never showed up for you. I was so busy chasing get-rich-quick schemes that I missed watching my wife become one of the most successful jewelry designers in the country." "This is very touching," Rebecca interrupted, "but we have papers to sign." "I'm not asking for money," Jack said quickly. "Or investment opportunities. Or anything really. I just..." He swallowed hard. "I need you to know that I understand now. What I did. How I treated you. I was wrong." The room fell silent. Through the window, I could see the city skyline. Somewhere out there, my new flagship store was under construction. "You know what hurt the most?" I finally said. "Not the money you lost, or even the insults. It was that you never once asked about my dreams. You never sat in my workshop and asked why I loved making jewelry, or what inspired my designs." "I know. I was an idiot." "No, you were worse than an idiot. You were a husband who made his wife feel small so you could feel big." He flinched. The crypto crash, losing everything, it opened my eyes. But by then it was too late. Rebecca slid the divorce papers across the table. "If we're done with the confessions, we should proceed." "One more thing," Jack said, reaching into his briefcase. He pulled out a small box, one of my original Luna and Sage packaging boxes. "I found this in our garage. It's the first piece you ever sold under the brand." I remembered it well, a delicate moonstone pendant that had given me the courage to start the secret line. "You kept this?" "It was in a box marked craft supplies." He smiled sadly. Another thing I never bothered to look at properly. I opened the box. The pendant was there, along with the original receipt and a note from the customer praising the design. "I thought you should have it," he said. "For your company archives or museum someday." Rebecca cleared her throat. "The papers?" Jack picked up the pen. "I really am sorry, Gloria. Not just for the money or the insults, but for not seeing you. Really seeing you." I watched him sign his name on each marked line. The same signature that had once drained our savings account was now setting me free. When it was my turn to sign, my hand didn't shake. Each signature felt like stepping into a new chapter. "Congratulations," Rebecca said when we finished. "You're officially divorced." Jack stood up, straightening his crooked tie. "Good luck with the flagship store opening. I saw the announcement in Women's Wear Daily. You deserve it." As he reached the door, I called out, "Jack?" He turned. "Thank you for returning the pendant. And I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." "I hope so too." He managed a small smile. "Just maybe not in crypto this time." After he left, Rebecca gathered the papers. "Well, that was surprisingly civil." Sometimes people can surprise you, I said, looking at the moonstone pendant, my first step toward becoming Luna and Sage. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, done with the divorce? Time to celebrate? Also, Maya Chin wore your new collection on Jimmy Fallon last night and crashed our website. Again. I smiled and texted back, meet me at the shop. Bring champagne. The real expensive kind, turns out I can afford it. Standing up, I slipped the pendant into my pocket. Sometimes you need to keep a reminder of where you started to fully appreciate how far you've come. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's living well and letting karma handle the rest. The red ribbon cutting scissors felt heavy in my hands as I stood before the crowd gathered outside my new flagship store. Camera flashes sparked like lightning, and reporters called out questions. Gloria. How does it feel to be opening your first Luna and Sage boutique? Is it true the waiting list for your newest collection is over 3,000 people? Can you comment on the rumors about an LVMH buyout offer? Sarah squeezed my arm. Look at all this. Remember when you were hiding your designs in boxes marked craft supplies? Before I could respond, a murmur went through the crowd. Maya Chen was making her way forward, wearing my latest design, a complex geometric necklace that had already been dubbed the Gloria by fashion magazines. I wouldn't miss this for anything, she said, hugging me. You're living proof that success is the best revenge. It's not about revenge anymore, I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. It's about finally being exactly who I was meant to be. The crowd parted again, and I saw him, hey Jack, standing at the back, wearing a department store suit and an uncertain expression. Our eyes met briefly before he nodded and turned away. Want me to have security remove him? Sarah whispered. I shook my head. Let him stay. Let him see. Turning to the crowd, I raised the scissors. Thank you all for being here today. This store represents more than just jewelry or success. It represents every person who's ever been told their dreams were too small, their ambitions too big, or their talents not worth noticing. The cameras clicked frantically. Each piece in this collection tells a story of transformation. Of hidden strength becoming visible beauty. I touched the moonstone pendant I wore, my first Luna and Sage piece, the one Jack had returned. Sometimes we need to hide our light while it grows. But eventually, we all deserve to shine. The ribbon fell away, and the crowd cheered. As people began flowing into the store, I caught fragments of conversation. The craftsmanship is incredible. Did you see the prices? And there's still a waiting list. That window display belongs in a museum. Inside, Sarah handed me a glass of champagne. Your little hobby turned out pretty well, huh? I laughed, watching as Maya Chin posed for photos with fans in front of a display case featuring my most iconic pieces. Through the windows, I could see the store's name in elegant gold letters, Luna and Sage by Gloria. My phone buzzed, an email from my accountant, quarterly projections exceeded expectations by 300%. LVMH increased their offer. Should we schedule a meeting? Gloria? A familiar voice made me turn. Jack stood there, looking both out of place and humbled. I'm not staying. I wanted to give you this. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping from years ago, a tiny advertisement for my first craft fair booth. I'd forgotten he'd even kept it. You were right, he said quietly. About everything. While I was chasing quick riches, you were building something real. Something lasting. Thank you, I said, and meant it. I got a real job, he added. Nothing fancy, junior accountant at a small firm. Starting over. Building something real this time. Before I could respond, a group of fashion editors approached, eager to discuss my upcoming Paris Fashion Week debut. When I looked back, Jack was gone. Sarah appeared at my elbow. You okay? Better than okay. I surveyed my store, the gleaming cases, the eager customers, the dreams made tangible in silver and gold. You know what's funny? I used to think success would feel like victory over everyone who doubted me. And now? Now I realize it feels like coming home to myself. A young woman approached tentatively, holding one of my early pieces. Ms. Gloria? I saved for months to buy this necklace. It reminds me to believe in myself, even when no one else does. I touched my moonstone pendant again. Would you like to hear the story behind this design? Her eyes lit up. Really? It's a story about hidden strength, I began, leading her to a quiet corner. About believing in your dreams even when others call them small. Sarah watched us with a knowing smile before turning to manage the growing crowd of customers. Outside, the sun caught the store's gold lettering, making it shimmer like a beacon. I'd finally found my light, and now I could help others find theirs. Not through revenge or vindication, but through the simple act of creating beauty and believing in its worth. That, I realized, was the greatest success of all.
Back then, I was just a girl with a pair of scissors and a dream, working in a no-name salon on the edge of town. My life was as ordinary as they come, filled with small talk, hair dye, and the buzz of hair clippers. Then, he walked in, a regular Joe needing a trim, but that haircut was about to change everything. "Hey, got time for a walk-in?" he asked, poking his head around the door, casual, like he was just in the neighborhood. I glanced up, meeting his gaze for the first time. "Sure thing, take a seat." I motioned to the empty barber chair. He sauntered over, all easy confidence, and plopped down. "I'm Tom," he said, throwing me a grin that felt like it could melt the hardest of hearts. "Lydia," I replied, trying to sound cool and professional as I draped the cape over him. "So, what are we doing today? Just a trim, or are you looking to shake things up?" "Just a trim," he chuckled, his eyes meeting mine in the mirror. "Don't think I'm ready to shake up anything just yet." As I started cutting, we fell into easy conversation. Turns out, we both had a thing for old rock bands and crappy horror movies. Who would have thought, right? He had this way of talking, like he genuinely cared about what I thought. It was refreshing, made me laugh more than I had in a long time. "You know, you're the first hairdresser I've met who knows more about Zombie Island Massacre than I do," he joked, as I snipped away. I scoffed, playfully nudging his shoulder. "Please, that movie's a classic. Besides, it's not often I get a client who appreciates fine cinema." He laughed, that sound filling the small space between us, and I couldn't help but join in. By the time I was done with his hair, it felt like we'd known each other for years instead of minutes. "There, all set," I said, brushing off the last few hairs from his neck. "What do you think?" He studied his reflection, running a hand through his freshly cut hair, then flashed me another one of those killer smiles. "Looks great, Lydia. You've got magic hands." I felt a blush creep up my neck. "Thanks, Tom. That'll be $15. He handed over the money, his fingers brushing mine for a split second. "How about I take you out for a drink to say thanks? There's this dive bar around the corner, nothing fancy, but it's got character." I hesitated, not because I didn't want to go, but because it felt like stepping into uncharted territory. "I don't know." "Come on," he coaxed, his eyes twinkling with a mix of challenge and something softer. "When was the last time you did something spontaneous?" That night at the bar, Tom and I talked about everything under the sun, from our dreams to our favorite pizza toppings. Our casual dates quickly turned into something more. Nights out at the dive bar became cozy evenings in, cooking dinner together or binging on those crappy horror movies we both loved. Our banter was easy, full of laughs and those tough, no-bullshit conversations that only made us closer. "Lydia, I think this is it for me," Tom declared one evening, his usual playful tone replaced by something deeper, more serious. His sincerity took my breath away. "Tom, me too. I've never been this happy." Not long after, we decided to tie the knot. A couple of years down the line, our son, Alex, came into the world, making our small family feel complete. Watching Tom become a father was like falling in love with him all over again. Raising Alex was a wild ride, filled with laughter, late-night feeds, and learning on the fly. Tom and I, we were figuring it out as we went, leaning on each other through the sleepless nights and the baby milestones. Our little apartment was always a mess, toys everywhere, but it was our mess, our perfect little chaos. "Lydia, have you seen my socks?" Tom would holler from the bedroom over the sound of Alex's giggles as I chased him around the living room. "In the drawer where they always are," I'd shout back, trying not to trip over the myriad of toys strewn across the floor. Life was good, simple but good. As Alex grew, so did our family dynamic. He was this bright, curious kid with a wild imagination and an even wilder energy level. Keeping up with him was a full-time job, but Tom and I, we tag-teamed it like pros. 30 years have passed at such a pleasantly insane pace. Then came the day Sarah walked into my salon. She was a breath of fresh air, with her easy smile and her way of making you feel like you'd been friends for years. As she sat in my chair, pouring her heart out about her recent breakup, I found myself genuinely caring about this girl, her story touching something in me. "Men are trash," she huffed, a fire in her eyes as she recounted her tale of woe. I couldn't help but laugh, snipping away at her hair. "Not all of them, surely. I got lucky with mine, but it took a few frogs to find my prince." She smiled at that, a real smile that reached her eyes. "You give me hope, Lydia." It was during one of these sessions that Alex decided to drop by, something about needing to borrow money for God knows what. The moment he and Sarah met, it was like watching a live spark. They hit it off instantly, their chemistry undeniable. "Mom, Sarah's cool, where'd you find her?" Alex asked later, trying to sound nonchalant but failing miserably. "In my chair, where else?" I teased, knowing full well what was brewing between those two. Sure enough, they started dating, and it wasn't long before they were inseparable. Watching them together, it was like witnessing a whole new chapter beginning, not just for them, but for our family too. Their whirlwind romance led them down the aisle in no time, and Tom and I found ourselves welcoming Sarah into the family with open arms. "Dad, I'm gonna marry her," Alex announced one day, a serious look on his face. Tom clapped him on the back, a broad smile spreading across his face. "You've got my blessing, son. Just make sure you're ready for the wild ride that is marriage." And what a ride it was. Their wedding was a simple affair, much like ours had been, but it was perfect. There was laughter, dancing, and an overwhelming sense of joy that filled the air. "Welcome to the family, Sarah," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You're stuck with us now, for better or worse." She laughed, hugging me back. "Wouldn't have it any other way, Lydia." Our family gatherings became the highlight of our weeks, filled with good food, great company, and the inevitable stories of Alex trying to impress Sarah with his not-so-impressive cooking skills. "Mom, tell Sarah about the time I made that 3-course meal," Alex would say, puffing out his chest with pride. I'd exchange a knowing look with Sarah, then dive into the tale, embellishing here and there for comedic effect. Well, the fire department only had to come once, so I'd say it was a success. Everyone would burst into laughter, the sound and melody that filled our home with warmth and happiness. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, and ours came hurtling out of left field. Tom, my rock, the guy who'd been by my side through thick and thin, started acting off. It was little things at first, staying late at work, business trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. "Tom, you're working late again?" I'd ask, phone cradled between my ear and shoulder as I tried to juggle dinner prep. "Yeah, babe, big project. You know how it is." His voice came through, tired but edged with something I couldn't quite place. I did know, or at least I thought I did. But then the late nights started stacking up, becoming more the rule than the exception. And the gym? Tom hadn't stepped foot in one since I'd known him, and suddenly he's all about fitness, talking about getting in shape like it was his new religion. One evening, as he laced up his sneakers, I couldn't hold back my curiosity. "Since when do you care about hitting the gym?" He chuckled, a sound that used to warm me but now felt like it was skating over something colder. "What, can't a guy want to look good for his wife?" His words should have soothed me, but they didn't. There was a gap between us that words couldn't bridge anymore. Then there was Sarah, our son's wife, who'd been like a daughter to us. She was in on these family dinners, laughing and joking, yet I noticed she'd started spending more time on her phone, smiling at texts in a way that seemed off. "Who's keeping you smiling like that?" I asked her one afternoon as we cleared up after lunch. "Just a friend from work, you know how it is," she replied, her gaze darting away from mine a little too quickly. "Yeah, I know how it is," I echoed, a sinking feeling in my stomach. Things came to a head when a friend of mine, Jenna, pulled me aside one day. We were at the market, and out of nowhere, she said, "Lydia, I saw Tom at the hotel downtown, and he wasn't alone." My heart stopped. "What are you talking about, Jenna?" "Tom's been on a business trip." She hesitated, then pulled out her phone, showing me a video. There he was, my Tom, arm around a woman. That alone was a gut punch, but when the woman turned her face towards the camera, the ground slipped away beneath me. It was Sarah. I felt like I was choking, the air too thick to breathe. "This has to be a mistake," I whispered, more to myself than to Jenna. "I wouldn't tell you if I wasn't sure, Lydia," Jenna said, her voice full of sympathy I didn't want or need. I nodded, numb, asking her to send me the video before we parted ways. When I got home, Tom was his usual self, asking about my day with that same distracted air. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger where my husband used to be. "Everything's fine," I lied smoothly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Just the usual day." I needed time to think, to plan, to figure out what the hell I was going to do. Later, alone in our room, I watched the video again. And there it was, the truth I couldn't deny any longer. All of Tom's late nights, his newfound love for the gym, it all made a sickening kind of sense. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling a rage and sorrow I didn't know were possible. Tom, the man I'd spent my life with, and Sarah, who I'd welcomed into our family with open arms, had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. The days following the revelation felt like walking through a thick fog, each step heavier than the last. But I knew I had to clear the air, for my sake and Alex's. The decision to confront Tom and Sarah together weighed on me like a ton of bricks. My hand shook as I dialed Alex's number, my heart pounding against my ribcage. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" Alex's voice, always so full of life, cut through the silence of the room. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Alex, we need to talk. It's important. Can you come over?" There was a brief pause, concern creeping into his tone. "Sure, everything okay?" "We'll talk when you get here, honey," I said, trying to keep my voice even. The wait for Alex to arrive was excruciating. Tom was out, probably with her, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the damning video on my phone. When Alex finally walked through the door, his brows were furrowed in worry. "Mom? You're scaring me. What's going on?" he asked, closing the door behind him. I motioned for him to sit down, my hands trembling as I passed him my phone. "Watch this," I said, the words barely a whisper. Alex's confusion turned to shock, then horror as the video played out. He looked up at me, his eyes searching for an explanation, any explanation that could make this nightmare make sense. "Mom, please tell me this isn't real," he begged, the pain in his voice a mirror of my own. "It's real, Alex. I'm so sorry," I said, my voice breaking. We sat in silence, the weight of betrayal hanging heavy between us. After what felt like an eternity, Alex spoke up, his voice hardened with resolve. "We need to confront them. Together," he said, and I nodded. There was no other way forward. The dinner table was set, a macabre stage for the unraveling of our family. Tom and Sarah arrived together, oblivious to the storm they were about to walk into. Their laughter grated on my nerves, but I kept my composure. "Lydia, this looks wonderful," Sarah said, taking her seat with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I forced a smile in return, waiting for Alex to signal he was ready. He gave me a subtle nod, and I knew it was time. "Tom, Sarah, we have something to show you," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I played the video, watching their faces closely. Tom's expression crumbled, guilt washing over him. Sarah, on the other hand, looked defiant, even as her facade began to crack. "This is nonsense. It's not what it looks like," Tom stammered, looking from me to Alex, desperate for any sign of belief. "What, are you going to deny it? Even now?" Alex's voice was cold, his anger palpable. Sarah finally spoke up, her voice laced with arrogance. "What? Afraid of a little competition?" The room went silent, the audacity of her words hanging in the air. Tom looked defeated, the reality of his actions finally dawning on him. "Competition? Is that what I am to you?" I asked, my heart breaking all over again. Alex stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I want you out of my house, now," he directed at Sarah, his voice leaving no room for argument. She scoffed, her delusion seemingly boundless. "We need housing. I'm entitled to half of this apartment and alimony." The room went silent for a moment, her words hanging in the air like a bad smell. Alex let out a harsh laugh, shaking his head. "The apartment's mine, bought before we were married. You've got no claim to it, and forget about alimony after what you did." The showdown with Sarah was brutal, but clear-cut. She stormed out, her threats echoing hollowly behind her. But then, Tom turned to me, his expression shifting from guilt to something harder, colder. "We need to talk about our property," he said, the words heavy between us. "It needs to be divided. Our home, our life together for 30 years, reduced to mere assets, to be split." The pain of his betrayal was one thing, but this cold demand was another knife twist. "So, this is it? After everything, all you care about is money?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice from breaking. "It's only fair. We built this together, so we split it," Tom replied, his voice void of the warmth I once knew. The divorce was nothing short of a soap opera, with more drama and screaming than I'd ever experienced in my life. Courtrooms aren't exactly the place for airing family secrets, but there we were, laying it all out for the judge to see. Tom had decided to throw in his lot with Sarah, his son's ex-wife, of all people. If you'd told me a couple of years ago that my life would turn into this mess, I'd have laughed in disbelief. After the judge banged that gavel for the last time, declaring us officially divorced, Sarah had the nerve to gloat. "Guess you're on your own now, huh? Kinda old to find someone decent," she sneered, thinking she'd struck a nerve. I just smiled at her, shaking my head. "Honey, if Tom's your idea of a decent man, I'm better off alone," I said, walking away with my dignity intact. Let her have Tom and all the headaches that came with him. I had bigger fish to fry. With my share of the property settlement, I bought a modest apartment in a quiet part of town. It was no palace, but it was mine, a fresh start. The rest of the money went into my dream, a beauty salon of my own. The day I opened the doors to the public, I felt a mix of nerves and pride. "This is it, Mom. You're gonna knock 'em dead," Alex said, hugging me tight before the first customers walked in. And he was right. Word of mouth spread, and before I knew it, Lydia's Oasis was the go-to spot in town. The online reviews raved about the place, and my heart swelled with pride every time I read a new one. Alex's life took a turn for the better, too. He met Emily, a woman as far from Sarah as the moon is from the sun. When they got married, it was a small affair, full of love and laughter, the complete opposite of his first wedding. And then came the twins, my beautiful grandbabies, filling my life with joy I didn't know was missing. "Babysitting duty, Mom. You up for it?" Alex would ask, dropping the twins off so he and Emily could have some much-needed couple time. "Bring it on," These munchkins are no match for Grandma, I'd reply, gearing up for a day filled with games, giggles, and the occasional diaper disaster. Sarah's words from the courthouse echoed in my mind, and I laughed. Old and alone? Far from it. I was surrounded by love, my business was thriving, and my heart was full. I didn't just survive, I flourished. And as for Tom and Sarah, well, let's just say I wished them all the happiness they deserved. That call, it hit me like a freight train out of nowhere. Tom, of all people, with his voice oozing confidence like he was entitled to something from me. Lydia, you know, that salon of yours. I was thinking, given how well it's doing and all, it's only fair I get a piece of it. After all, wasn't it my money that got it started? He had the audacity to claim. I felt my blood boil, but managed to keep my cool. Oh, is that so? I played along, curiosity getting the better of me. Why don't we meet and chat about this, Tom? Say, next week? The call with Alex that followed was a whirlwind of emotion. Can you believe this, Alex? After everything, he still thinks he can squeeze more out of me. Alex was furious on my behalf. Mom, this is ridiculous. Let's dig up some dirt on him. A private investigator should do the trick. The week that followed was surreal. I was physically at the salon, but my mind was miles away, lost in thought and worry over what Tom was plotting. My staff and regulars could tell something was up. You all right, Lydia? You seem distracted, they'd say. Just an old ghost decided to pay a visit, I'd quip back, forcing a smile. But the anxiety gnawed at me, wondering what dirt the investigator would unearth. Finally, the report landed in my hands. The findings were a mix of the expected and the utterly shocking. Tom and Sarah's life wasn't the picture-perfect scene they had been painting. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. I couldn't help but laugh, a deep, guttural sound that surprised even me. With this in my arsenal, I was more than ready to face Tom. Walking into that bustling cafe, my stomach was in knots, but my determination was ironclad. Spotting Tom and his little family setup was like watching a bad soap opera live. He was there, grinning like a Cheshire cat, with Sarah, heavily pregnant, and this young dude introduced as her brother. Right off the bat, the scene was ripe with pretense. Tom wasted no time, launching into his spiel with gusto. Lydia, so good of you to join us. Look, we're expanding the family, he said, gesturing towards Sarah's belly with a pride that seemed misplaced. And we got to thinking, what's better for our future than having a stake in your salon? It's booming, and Sarah here, she's got the knack. She's dreaming of her own place. I couldn't help but laugh, not a polite chuckle, but a deep, from-the-gut laugh. Tom, you're dreaming if you think you're entitled to any part of my salon. But, let's cut to the chase, shall we? You, my dear ex-husband, are not the father of Sarah's baby. The table went dead quiet, the air thick with tension. Tom's smile faltered, confusion etching his features. Lydia, what the hell are you talking about? I took my time, pulling out the photos, videos, and the clincher, the medical documents. This young man, I said, pointing at the so-called brother, is actually your wife's lover, not her brother. And Tom, about being a dad again, remember our little chickenpox saga? The doctor was quite clear about the aftermath, infertility. Watching the color drain from Tom's face was, I admit, a guilty pleasure. Sarah's smugness evaporated, replaced by panic, while her brother looked ready to sink through the floor. Tom leaped up, rage contorting his face, turning towards the young man with fire in his eyes. You're dead, mate. The cafe erupted into chaos, patrons scrambling to get a better view, phones out, recording every second. Sarah was shrieking, her brother trying to defend himself, and Tom looking like he wanted to tear the world apart. I stood, my voice cutting through the mayhem. I've had enough of this circus. You three deserve each other. I didn't wait for a response, didn't look back to see the aftermath of the bomb I'd dropped. Walking out of that cafe, the air never tasted sweeter, the sun never shone brighter. After the cafe showdown, life seemed to pick up speed, barreling towards a future I was eager to meet head-on. One morning, as I unlocked the salon's door, I was greeted by the familiar faces of my staff, each one a key player in my journey to rebuilding my life. "Morning, boss lady. Ready to conquer the day?" Jenny, my top stylist, called out with a grin. I chuckled, flipping the sign to open. "With you lot by my side? Always." The day was a whirlwind of snips and styles, laughter, and gossip, the kind of day that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with this business in the first place. As we were closing up, Alex and Emily stopped by, the twins in tow, their faces smeared with what looked suspiciously like chocolate. "Grandma, look what we made at school today," one of the twins, Mia, exclaimed, holding up a drawing that was more abstract than anything. I crouched down to their level, pulling them into a hug. "This is going straight on the fridge, my little artists." Alex watched us, a soft smile on his face. "You're doing amazing, Mom. I'm proud of you." I stood up, ruffling the twins' hair. "We're doing amazing, Alex. This family, this life, it's more than I could have asked for." That night, as I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the struggles that had shaped me, for the betrayal that had tested me, and for the love that had seen me through. Tom and Sarah were now just footnotes in my story, a story that was far from over. I had chapters yet to write, adventures yet to embark on, and love yet to give. The dawn of a new day had never felt so sweet, so full of promise. The party was already in full swing when I got there, music blasting and people everywhere, laughing and dancing. My friend Sarah's place was known for these blowouts, but tonight felt different. Maybe because I wasn't really in the mood for partying, considering the rough week at the dental clinic, dealing with patients who thought flossing was a suggestion rather than a necessity. I was nursing my drink, kinda zoning out, when he walked over. "Seems like you're not enjoying the party much," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. I looked up, a bit taken aback. He was older, probably in his early 40s, with that kind of distinguished look that some men seem to grow into. "Just tired," I admitted, forcing a smile. "Rough week at work." He laughed, a hearty sound that made a few heads turn. "Tell me about it. I'm Mark, by the way." "Laura," I said, shaking his hand. It was warm, his grip firm. "So, Laura, what brings you to this madhouse?" he asked, glancing around at the party chaos. "Sarah's a friend from college. And you?" I was curious. He didn't seem like the usual crowd here. "I've known Sarah's uncle for years. Promised I'd show my face," he explained. We found ourselves a quieter corner and started talking. Turned out, Mark was into finance, something with stocks, which usually would bore me to tears, but the way he talked about it was kind of fascinating. And funny, too. He had this way of making even the driest topics seem interesting. At some point, he mentioned his upcoming birthday, almost as an afterthought. "It's actually this coming Thursday. Another year closer to oblivion," he joked, a mock toast with his drink. "Happy early birthday, then. I'll have to get you a present," I said, playing along with the jest. He raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips. "Oh, really? Well, I wouldn't say no to that. How about you join me for dinner? Consider it my birthday present." I laughed, thinking he was continuing the joke. "Sure, why not? Beats spending your birthday alone, right?" To my surprise, he took out his phone. "Great. Let me get your number, and I'll send you the details." That's how I ended up agreeing to a dinner for Mark's birthday, barely an hour after meeting him. It was impulsive, sure, but there was something about him, something that made me want to say yes. The night of the dinner came quicker than I thought. It was at this cozy little restaurant downtown, just the right kind of place for a birthday dinner. Mark was already there, waiting with a smile that made my heart do a weird flip. "Happy birthday," I said, handing him a small, wrapped gift. It was just a book I thought he'd like, nothing fancy. He looked genuinely touched, opening it with a care that made me feel, I don't know, special, I guess. This is perfect, Laura. Thank you. Dinner was amazing. We talked about everything and nothing, from our jobs to the crazy ways of the world. And the more we talked, the more I realized I was enjoying myself, enjoying his company. It was late when we finally left the restaurant. Thanks for a great birthday, Laura. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed one like this, Mark said, his voice sincere. I felt a warmth spread through me at his words. I'm glad I could make it special. Happy birthday, Mark. Who knew a simple birthday dinner could kick off a whirlwind like the one Mark and I found ourselves in? Not me, that's for sure. After that night, we started seeing each other more and more. It wasn't long before those casual dates turned into something that felt a lot like, well, like something serious. One chilly evening, we were walking down the street after grabbing a bite at this little dive that Mark loved. He was going on about something funny that happened at his office, his laughter echoing in the cool air. Suddenly, Mark stopped walking and turned to me, his expression serious all of a sudden. Laura, I've been thinking. Yeah? I prompted, a bit taken aback by the sudden shift in mood. I'm really happy with you. Like, really happy. And I was wondering. What do you think about us moving in together? He blurted out, his gaze fixed on me. I felt my heart skip a beat. Moving in together? That was a big step. Mark, I'm happy too, really happy. But don't you think it's a bit soon? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He took my hands in his eyes earnest. Maybe it is, but when something feels this right, why wait? I love you, Laura. And I want us to start building something together. His words sent a wave of warmth through me. Love. He'd said he loved me. And the crazy part? I realized I loved him too. Okay. I said, the word coming out in a whisper. Let's do it. Let's move in together. The smile that lit up Mark's face was worth any doubt or fear I might have had. From that night on, things moved quickly. We found a cozy apartment not too far from where I worked. Packing up my stuff and moving in with Mark felt like the start of a new chapter. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. Combining two lives into one space came with its fair share of bumps. Like the time I discovered Mark's insistence on keeping his ancient, ugly recliner right in the middle of our living room. I replied that in return I would put my neon pink flamingo lamp in the room. It was these little moments, these little compromises, that made us stronger, I think. We were figuring it out together, learning to give and take. Then came the talk of marriage. We were lying in bed one night, just talking about everything and nothing, when Mark suddenly turned to me. Laura, marry me. It wasn't a question, more like a statement. No kneeling, no ring in hand, just him and me, and his words hanging in the air between us. I looked into his eyes, saw the love and the seriousness there, and knew my answer. Yes, Mark. I'll marry you. The wedding was a small affair, just as we wanted. My parents, a few close friends, and of course, Alex, Mark's son. I could tell the kid wasn't thrilled about the situation, but he didn't kick up a fuss. Probably didn't want to upset his dad. Life with Mark was mostly smooth sailing, at least until the day he came to me with a request that threw me for a loop. Hey, Laura, can we talk about something? Mark asked one evening, looking a bit uneasy, which was unusual for him. Sure, what's up? I replied, setting down my book. His tone had already put me on alert. It's about Alex, he began, pacing a little. He's got this dream of starting a music band, and he's pretty serious about it. I nodded, encouraging him to continue. Music was a great outlet for teens, after all. Well, he's short on cash for some equipment and stuff. I was wondering, could we help him out? He needs about $10,000. Mark finished, finally stopping to look at me. I almost choked on my tea. $10,000? That's a lot of money, Mark. I know, but it's for a good cause, right? It's his dream. Mark pressed, his eyes searching mine for some sign of agreement. I sighed, feeling a mix of emotions. On one hand, I wanted to support Mark and his son, but on the other, this was a huge amount of money. Let me think about it, okay? In the end, I agreed. Seeing Mark so hopeful and excited about helping his son was touching. But that was just the beginning. A few months later, Mark came to me again. This time, he seemed more anxious. Laura, I hate to ask, but Alex needs more money for the band. Another $10,000, he said quickly, as if trying to get the words out before he could change his mind. I felt my frustration rise. Again, Mark? We just gave him $10,000. Where is all that money going? Mark's face fell, and he became defensive. He's investing in his future, Laura. Don't you think it's worth it? I do, but it's a lot of money. We're not made of cash, you know, I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. The argument that followed was heated. Mark accused me of not caring about Alex's future, and I accused him of not being realistic. It ended with Mark storming out, leaving me alone and bewildered. He returned a few days later, apologetic but still insistent. I'm sorry for blowing up, Laura. But it's important. To me, to Alex. Please. Torn between my love for Mark and my concerns about this seemingly bottomless pit of financial support for Alex's band, I agreed once more. But it didn't sit right with me. Then came the bombshell. Mark, looking more haggard and desperate than I'd ever seen him, asked for $30,000. Mark, this is crazy. $30,000? What's going on? This isn't just about some band, I said, feeling my patience wearing thin. It's for a tour. They've got a real shot, Laura, he stammered, avoiding my gaze. A tour? Mark, you can't expect me to believe this. We need to see some proof, something to show for all this money, I demanded, my voice rising. Mark exploded. Why can't you just trust me, Laura? Why do you always have to make things so difficult? The fight that ensued was ugly, full of accusations and hurtful words. Mark threatened divorce if I didn't agree to give Alex the money. I was stunned. This wasn't the man I married. I asked for time to think, but what I really needed was answers. This situation felt wrong on so many levels, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. First stop on my detective trail was the internet. I figured if Alex's band was legit, they'd have some kind of online presence. So, I hunkered down with my laptop, typed in the band's name Mark mentioned, and hit search. The results were as barren as a desert, nothing, zip, zilch. Not a single trace of a band that was supposedly on the brink of their big break. Feeling a mix of frustration and vindication, I headed over to Alex's Instagram. If there were any clues to be found, it had to be there. I scrolled through his feed, which was like flipping through a catalog of luxury. Fancy dinners, designer gear, you name it. But among the high-life snapshots, not a single pic hinted at a music career. No instruments, no rehearsal spaces, nothing. Baffled, I decided it was time for some expert advice. I dialed up Danny, a buddy from college who's now deep into the music scene, always on the pulse of the latest bands and trends. Hey Danny, it's me. I started, trying to sound casual. Quick question for you, ever heard of a band called? I gave him the name Mark had fed me. There was a moment of silence on the line, then Danny's confused voice came through. Never heard of them. And trust me, if they were making any waves, I'd know. Why? They any good? I let out a sigh, a mix of disappointment and relief. Nah, just came across the name. Thought I'd check. Thanks, man. Danny's curiosity was piqued. You sure? I can do a bit more digging if you want. No, it's okay. Really. I appreciate it, though, I said, before quickly changing the subject. We chatted for a few more minutes about nothing in particular, before hanging up. There I was, back at square one, but now armed with a bucket load of doubts, and no one to share them with. I didn't breathe a word of this to Mark. how could I? I didn't know whether he was in on this scam or just another pawn in Alex's game. Nah, this needed more digging, and until I had something solid, my lips were sealed. The moment had come to face the music, or, more accurately, the lack thereof. I perched in front of my computer, the green light of the webcam flickering to life. My finger hovered over the Skype icon before pressing it with determination. This wasn't just a call, it was a confrontation. Alex answered, his face filling the screen. He looked relaxed, maybe too relaxed, like he was about to schmooze more money out of me. He didn't know the storm that was coming. "Hey, Laura. What's up?" he started, all smiles. "Cut the crap, Alex. We're not playing this game anymore. There's no band, is there? No music, no gigs, just you, living it up on my dime." I shot back, not giving him an inch. He tried to keep his smile, but I saw it falter. "What are you talking about?" "Of course, there's a..." "Save it. I've done my homework. Your Instagram's a nice little portfolio of lies." "Yeah, your band is as real as a $3 bill. I cut him off, my voice sharp as a knife. For a moment, Alex looked like he was searching for another lie, another angle. But then, his expression shifted, darkened. "You're gonna regret poking your nose into this, Laura. I've got friends, the kind that make problems go away." The thread hung in the air, a shadow passing over his face. My heart skipped, fear mingling with anger. But I wasn't about to back down. "Threats, Alex? Really? Here's something you should know, this call is being recorded. Every word. Think your friends can handle police heat?" Watching his bravado crumble was almost satisfying. His face went from confident to pale, his eyes wide. "No, no, no. You can't." I was just... "Please, Laura. I made it up, okay? There's no gang, no friends. It's just me." The tears started, his tough act melting away to reveal a scared kid in over his head. But I was past sympathy. "All this, for what, Alex? Why the lies? Why the money?" He was sobbing now, a mess of regret and fear. I just wanted to be someone, you know? Someone important. The money, the lifestyle. I thought it would make me happy." "And you lied to your father? That part of your happiness plan?" I pushed, needing him to understand the weight of his actions. He flinched, wiping his eyes. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. I found out about him and someone else. Photos. I thought I could use it to... I don't know, get more money, keep up the act." I felt cold, a chill that went bone deep. "You have proof? Send it. Now." He didn't argue, quickly tapping away on his end. Moments later, my phone dinged with the incoming evidence. Photos of Mark in the arms of another woman, unmistakable in their betrayal. My heart broke, not just for the marriage I thought I had, but for the man I thought Mark was. Armed with the ugly truth and a heavy heart, I waited for Mark to come home. The air was thick with anticipation, almost suffocating. I rehearsed what I was going to say a million times over, but when I heard his key in the door, all my plans flew right out the window. He walked in, tired, the lines on his face more pronounced than ever. "Hey, Laura. We need to..." he started, but I cut him off. "We need to talk. Now," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. Mark paused, looking at me, really looking, and he must have seen something in my eyes because he nodded, setting his bag down with a heaviness that matched my heart. "Okay, what's wrong?" I took a deep breath, the photos I'd received from Alex burning a hole in my pocket. "It's about Alex, and you." "I know everything, Mark." His face paled, the blood draining away as if I'd struck him. "What do you mean? Laura, Don't you dare lie to me, not now. I've seen the photos, Mark. The ones Alex has been blackmailing you with. Of you and her." I spat out, the words tasting like bile. For a moment, he just stood there, a statue, then he slumped into a chair, his face in his hands. Laura, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, I never wanted you to find out this way. Sorry? Is that supposed to make everything alright? You cheated on me, Mark. And then you let your son blackmail you into bleeding us dry. My voice was rising, a crescendo of betrayal and hurt. I know. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was going to end it, I swear. And Alex. I didn't know how to handle it. I was scared of losing everything. He mumbled, his voice muffled by his hands. Losing everything? You've already lost it, Mark. You lost me the moment you decided to step out on our marriage. And for what? A fling? To feel young again? I was pacing now, the anger, the hurt, it was all bubbling up. I want a divorce. After the dust settled from our confrontation, the reality of my next steps began to sink in. Mark had retreated to a hotel, leaving me alone in the apartment we once shared, surrounded by memories that now felt like ghosts. I started packing, each item a reminder of the life I thought we were building together. It was surreal, sorting through our belongings, deciding what was mine and what we had shared. The packing didn't take as long as I thought. My life, it seemed, could be condensed into a few suitcases and boxes. A stark reminder of how quickly things can change, how swiftly the familiar can become past. Once everything was packed, I stood in the middle of the now bare living room, a pang of sadness hitting me. This was it. The end of a chapter. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the next step, and called a taxi. Arriving at the rented place felt like stepping into another world. It was smaller, less personal, but it was a clean slate, a place without the shadows of betrayal. After paying the taxi driver, I hauled my things up to the apartment, the physical exertion a welcome distraction from the turmoil inside. Once inside, surrounded by boxes and suitcases, I finally allowed myself a moment to breathe. The quiet of the apartment was a stark contrast to the storm of emotions I'd been living through. It was in this new silence that I realized the gravity of what had happened, of what I'd done. I'd left my husband, my home, and stepped into the unknown. Needing to hear a friendly voice, I picked up my phone and dialed Sarah, the friend whose birthday party had changed my life all those years ago. She answered on the second ring, her voice a balm to my frayed nerves. Hey, it's me. I started, my voice steadier than I felt. Hey, what's up? You sound off, she replied, her tone immediately shifting to concern. I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out. I left Mark. I found out about everything. The affair, the lies, Alex's blackmail. I couldn't stay there, in that apartment, with all those memories. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Oh my God, Laura, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm in a rented apartment. Just needed to get away, to start figuring things out on my own, I explained, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. Laura, I'm here for you, whatever you need. I can't believe he would do that to you, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. Thanks, Sarah. It means a lot. I just need some time, to process all of this. Hanging up, I felt a small sense of comfort, a reminder that despite everything, I wasn't completely alone. The first few weeks after leaving Mark were a blur of emotions and paperwork. The divorce proceedings were underway, a seemingly endless stream of signatures and legalities that felt both freeing and suffocating. The end of my marriage had sent ripples through my life, changing not just my future but Mark's as well. He's been having a rough time. The story got out, about the affair and the blackmail. It's affected his job, his reputation. It was a sobering thought, one that made me realize the depth of the fallout from our shattered relationship. In the days that followed, I threw myself into work and started exploring new hobbies, anything to rebuild the pieces of myself that had been lost in the turmoil. Slowly, I began to find joy in the little things, a coffee at a new cafe, a book that made me think, a jog in the park that cleared my mind. One afternoon, I decided to visit an art class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had the courage to do. There, covered in paint and laughing at my own lack of skill, I felt a spark of something new. It wasn't just about moving on from Mark, it was about rediscovering who I was without him. Just when I thought I was finding my new normal, my phone rang with a number I hadn't expected to see again, Alex's. "Hey." His voice came through, tentative, a stark contrast to the bravado and deceit that had marked our last exchanges. I hesitated, the old hurt flaring up for a moment, before I pushed it down. "Alex. What's up?" I just wanted to say I'm sorry, for everything. I messed up, big time. I realized I was chasing all the wrong things, for all the wrong reasons," he said, the words rushed, like he'd been rehearsing them. I listened, the silence on my end prompting him to continue. "It's just, I never really got much attention from Dad, you know? And money, we never had enough. I thought if I could just live that life, even for a little while, it'd make things better. But I was wrong," he admitted, his voice laced with something that sounded a lot like regret. "Alex, I forgive you. But you need to understand, going down that path, using people, lying, it's only going to bring you more trouble," I said, my tone more gentle than I would have expected of myself. There was a pause, and then a quiet, "I know. I'm going to change, I promise. No more lies, no more schemes. I'm done with that life." His words held a note of sincerity that I hadn't heard from him before. It was enough to make me believe that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to turn a new leaf. "Good. Stick to that promise, Alex. It's never too late to start making the right choices," I encouraged, a part of me hoping he'd take my words to heart. We ended the call soon after, and I found myself staring at the phone long after the line had gone dead. Alex's apology and the promise of change were unexpected but welcome. It was a small step towards closing a painful chapter for both of us. In the days that followed, I threw myself even more into my work, my art, and my friendships. Each brushstroke on the canvas, each laugh shared with friends, felt like a declaration of my resilience, a testament to my ability to move forward. Walking into Sarah's kitchen felt like stepping into a warm hug. The smell of roasted chicken mingled with laughter and chatter, creating a cozy atmosphere that immediately put me at ease. I was a bit of a hermit, preferring my books and lesson plans over social gatherings, but Sarah had a way of drawing me out of my shell. "Emily, you made it!" Sarah exclaimed, her voice a beacon in the bustling room. She dashed over, enveloping me in a tight hug that squeezed the breath out of me for a second. "Thought you'd bail last minute." I laughed, shaking my head. "And miss your cooking?" "Never." Sarah was the kind of friend everyone needed. Straightforward, with a no-nonsense attitude that was as refreshing as it was intimidating at times. Her husband, Mark, was the quieter counterpart, a gentle giant with a knack for listening that balanced Sarah's fiery spirit perfectly. As guests mingled, sipping on wine and nibbling on appetizers, I noticed a man I hadn't seen before. He stood out, not just because of his sharp suit that screamed "I mean business," but there was an air about him that caught my attention. He was chatting with Mark, but his gaze wandered, eventually locking with mine. "That's Michael," Sarah whispered, sidling up to me. "Quite the catch, huh?" I raised an eyebrow. "And he's here because?" Sarah's grin was mischievous. "Let's just say, I might have played matchmaker tonight." Before I could protest, Sarah was dragging me across the room, my heart hammering in my chest. "Michael, this is Emily, the friend I've been telling you about." "Emily, meet Michael, the city's most eligible bachelor." Michael extended his hand, his grip firm but gentle. "Pleasure to meet you, Emily." His voice was smooth, with a confidence that made my knees wobble a bit. "Likewise," I managed to say, hoping my nervousness wasn't too obvious. Dinner was served, and conversations flowed as freely as the wine. Michael was easy to talk to, sharing stories of his travels and business ventures that sounded like they were from another world compared to my quiet life as a teacher. "So, Emily, Sarah tells me you're shaping young minds." "That must be rewarding," Michael said, his eyes twinkling with genuine interest. I shrugged, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. It's more like herding cats, but yeah, it has its moments. Michael laughed, a sound that made my heart flutter. I can only imagine. It takes a special kind of person to do what you do. The evening flew by in a blur of laughter and shared stories. As the night wound down, Michael offered to walk me to my car, a gesture I found charmingly old-fashioned. Standing beside my car, the cool night air felt electric between us. I had a great time tonight, Emily. I was wondering if you'd like to go out sometime, just the two of us? I hesitated, not used to this kind of attention. That sounds nice, Michael. Great. I'll call you, he said, his smile sending a wave of warmth through me. Yeah, I'd like that, I replied, the smile on my face feeling permanent. Driving home, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was the start of something new. Little did I know, that dinner at Sarah's wasn't just a simple gathering. Waking up to the chirping birds outside our bedroom window, I stretched, still marveling at the reality of my new life. Married to Michael, living in a house that seemed straight out of a magazine, it was a far cry from my cozy, somewhat cluttered apartment back in the city. The smell of coffee wafted up, pulling me out of bed and downstairs, where Michael was already up, looking every bit the successful businessman, even in his casual morning attire. Morning, beautiful, he greeted, his smile bright. Coffee? Yeah, thanks, I mumbled, still rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Taking the mug, I sipped the strong brew, letting it chase away the remnants of sleep. So, what's on the agenda today? Michael asked, his tone casual as he glanced over his phone. I shrugged. Thought I'd unpack some more boxes, maybe explore the neighborhood a bit. Michael nodded, his attention half on me, half on the emails he was scrolling through. Sounds good. I've got meetings back to back today, won't be home till late. This had become the norm since we moved in. His presence, once constant and comforting during our courtship, had become more like a guest appearance in our home. I brushed off the nagging feeling of loneliness, chalking it up to the adjustment period of marriage. That evening, when Michael finally came home, I decided to broach the subject. Hey, can we talk? I asked as he loosened his tie, looking exhausted. He raised an eyebrow, sitting down on the sofa. Sure, what's up? It's just, I feel like we're ships passing in the night lately. I miss us, I admitted, feeling a lump in my throat. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. You know how it is. The business, it's demanding. I'm doing this for us. I know, I do. But maybe we could set aside some time, just for us? A date night or something? I suggested, hopeful. He looked at me for a long moment before nodding. You're right. I'm sorry, Em. Let's do that. How about Friday night? Dinner at that Italian place you love? A smile broke through my worries. I'd like that. As we settled into a comfortable silence, me curled up with a book and Michael with his laptop, I couldn't help but feel that this was just a hurdle we'd overcome together. After our quiet moment of reconciliation, the days started to blend into one another. Michael tried to make time for us, scheduling those promised date nights, but his phone was always buzzing, pulling him back into the world of work. I found solace in setting up our home, making it ours, filling it with warmth and love, hoping it would bridge the gap that his absence created. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset, a rare moment when his phone was silent, I decided it was the right time to bring up the topic that had been weighing on my heart. Michael, have you thought about us having kids? I ventured, my voice shaky with nerves. He looked at me, surprise flickering across his face, before it settled into a contemplative frown. Kids? You know how chaotic things are right now. I barely see you as it is. Bringing a kid into this, we're just not ready. I felt a sting at his words, a mix of disappointment and frustration. But we won't ever be ready. There's never a perfect time. I thought. We talked about this before. Michael let out a heavy sigh, running his hands through his hair. I know we did. But things are different now. The business is at a critical point, and we're just not in the right place for this, Em. His words felt like a punch to the gut, leaving me winded. It wasn't the response I hoped for, and it hurt more than I expected. So, what? We just keep waiting? Until when? Until it's too late? Em, come on, don't be like that. It's not about putting it off indefinitely. Just, not right now, okay? Let's get through this patch, and we'll revisit. I promise, he said, his tone gentle but firm. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The conversation had not gone as I hoped, leaving a heavy silence between us. As the night drew in, the gap between us felt wider than ever. 2 years flew by, and the change in Michael was like night turning into day, only in reverse. He was always at the office, buried in work, leaving me alone in our big, silent house. I found myself diving into my teaching, taking on extra classes, even snagged a part-time job to fill the echoing quiet of my days and nights. Michael? When he did show up, it was like living with a storm cloud. Parked in front of the TV, a beer in hand, he'd throw out comments about how I looked, how the dinner tasted like cardboard, or how the house wasn't up to his standards. It was nonsense, all of it. I kept our home spotless, cooked meals that would make a chef nod in approval, and as for my looks, I hadn't let myself go. But the way Michael went on, you'd think I'd given up on everything. Deep down, I knew this wasn't about me or how clean the house was. My gut told me there was someone else, that his late nights were more about who he was with than what he was doing. I've seen enough shifty glances in my time, taught enough kids to know when someone's hiding something. One evening, I couldn't take the charade any longer. Michael staggered in late, more booze on his breath than words in his hello. I was waiting for him, my mind made up. We need to talk, I said, cutting right to the chase as he flopped down on the couch. About? He didn't even look up, just flicked through the channels on the TV. Us. This. I gestured between us, the vast distance, despite the few feet. I can't do this anymore, Michael. I'm thinking, we should get a divorce. Finally, he looked at me, his eyes narrowing. Divorce? Are you out of your mind? Do you know what that would do to my reputation? Your reputation? I couldn't believe my ears. Is that all you care about? What about us? What about how unhappy I am? Michael scoffed, taking a swig from the bottle he'd brought in with him. You're being dramatic. It's not that bad. Not that bad? I was fuming now. Michael, you're never here. And when you are, all you do is complain and drink. That's not a marriage. I don't even know what that is. He stood up then, his expression hardening. We're not getting a divorce. End of discussion. I won't have people talking, saying I couldn't keep my wife happy. I stared at him, disbelief and anger swirling in my chest. So, you're happy to live a lie? For appearances? That's enough, Emily. I'm going to bed. We're not talking about this anymore. With that, he turned and left the room, leaving me standing there, my heart breaking in silence. The last couple of months had been rough. I felt like a shadow of myself, dragging through each day with a heaviness that sunk deeper than just fatigue. Food lost its taste, and my clothes hung loose on my frame. Teaching, something I'd always loved, became a chore I barely got through. Michael seemed oblivious to it all, more concerned about the dust on the TV stand than the fact I could barely muster the strength to get out of bed. It got to a point where even I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was off, and it wasn't just the blues. Dragging myself to the doctor's office felt like climbing a mountain, but I needed answers. Sitting in that sterile room, when the doctor told me I was pregnant, it was like a jolt of electricity. Happiness, fear, confusion, it all hit me at once. But through that storm of emotions, one thing stood clear: I wanted this baby, even if it meant going it alone. Telling Michael should have been a moment we shared, but given the state of things, I was dreading his reaction. My fears weren't unfounded. When I finally mustered the courage to tell him, his reaction was like a slap in the face. Pregnant? His voice was a mix of disbelief and anger. You want to bring a kid into this mess? I stood my ground, holding on to the newfound resolve that came with the thought of being a mother. Yes, I do. And I'll raise this child with or without you. Michael laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. Without me? You think you can handle this on your own? You're not exactly young, Emily. His words stung, but I was beyond caring about his opinions. I am fully capable of raising this child. It's clear you don't want any part in this, so maybe it's best if you leave. That set him off. Michael was furious, his words a venomous stream I refused to absorb. He stormed out, and the silence he left behind was a relief compared to his presence. 3 days passed without a word from him. I was alone, truly alone, with a life growing inside me and a marriage crumbling around me. I couldn't understand how we got here, how the man I married became a stranger, how our plans for a family turned into a battleground. My mind was a jumble of thoughts, worries about the future pressing down on me. That's when I stumbled upon something that turned my already upside-down world completely inside out. Late one evening, while scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the loneliness, I noticed a message request on Facebook. It was from someone I didn't know, a woman. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it, my heart sinking as I read her words. The message was brief, but clear. She claimed to be in love with Michael, telling me to let him go, because he didn't love me anymore. My initial reaction was disbelief, followed by a bitter laugh. Of course, there was someone else. The late nights, the detachment, it all made sense now. But seeing it in black and white was a slap I wasn't prepared for. Fury and hurt swirled inside me, urging me to do something, anything. So, I did what any self-respecting, scorned woman would do, I went to her profile. There, smiling back at me from the glowing screen, were pictures of Michael and her, cozy and smiling, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd been living with. I felt sick, my hands trembling as I put the phone down. It was one thing to suspect, another to have it confirmed so blatantly. I needed to confront Michael, to hear him admit it. But first, I needed support. Staring at my phone, the message from Michael's mistress still burning bright on the screen, I felt a surge of disgust and betrayal so intense it was like a physical blow. My hands shook with a mix of rage and heartache. Without thinking, I dialed Anna, my sister, needing someone to anchor me in this storm. Anna. I choked out the moment she answered, my voice a whirlwind of emotions. He's been cheating. There's someone else, and she had the nerve to message me. Anna's voice came through, sharp and clear, laced with anger on my behalf. That lowlife. Are you okay? What are you going to do? I'm done, Anna. I'm filing for a divorce. I can't do this anymore. Not only that, I'll make sure he pays for this, compensation for his cheating and alimony for the baby. I said, my voice growing stronger with each word, my resolve hardening. Before Anna could reply, a shadow fell over me. Michael had entered the room, his face a mask of fury and shock. Without a word, he snatched the phone from my hands, ending the call. Filing for divorce, huh? And you think I'm going to just roll over and accept that? He spat out, his voice laced with disdain. I don't care what you accept. You've made your bed, and now you're going to lie in it. I want nothing to do with you. I shot back, my heart pounding in my chest. Michael sneered, a cruel smile twisting his lips. I'm not marrying her, Emily. It was just an affair. And you think I'll give you a divorce? Pay you alimony? He laughed, the sound bitter and cold. I won't let you drag my name through the mud. And I sure as hell won't be paying for a kid that might not even be mine. His words were like daggers, but I stood my ground. You don't have a choice. I'll go through the courts if I have to. You think you can live this double life, juggling your wife and your mistress, without any consequences? You're wrong. Michael's anger seemed to boil over at that. You have no idea what you're getting into. I won't let you ruin me, he hissed, his face inches from mine. I'm not the one who ruined us, Michael. You did that all on your own. And now you're going to face the consequences, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. The words Michael spat out about not wanting the baby and his refusal to leave his double life behind hit me hard. I was reeling from his coldness, his outright cynicism. In that moment, my decision was made, I was leaving. But as I turned to grab my things, a sharp pain cut through my stomach, so intense it ripped a scream from my throat. Michael, call an ambulance. I gasped, doubled over in pain, clutching at my belly. He looked at me, annoyance flickering in his eyes, before being replaced by a reluctant sense of responsibility. I'll drive you, he muttered, clearly irritated by the inconvenience. It was pouring outside, the kind of relentless rain that blurred the world into a watery haze. I struggled to the car, each movement a burst of agony. Michael drove, silent and tense, as we navigated the slick country roads. Then, horror struck, a warm rush of blood, a crimson stain spreading over my clothes and onto the car seat. Michael! I cried out, terror seizing me. There's so much blood. His reaction was a mixture of anger and disgust. Get out! He barked, pulling over with a screech. You're ruining the upholstery. In disbelief and pain, I somehow managed to get out of the car, expecting I don't know what. Help, maybe? But Michael just drove off, leaving me there alone, in pain and bleeding on the side of the road. I don't know how long I was there before darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, the sterile white of a hospital room greeted me, and my sister, Anna, was there, her face etched with worry and relief. Emily, thank God, she breathed out, squeezing my hand. I found you on the road. I was so scared when our call dropped, and I came looking for you. The pain had dulled to a throb, overshadowed by a heavy sense of loss. The baby? I whispered, fearing the answer. Anna's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Em. They couldn't save the pregnancy. Grief washed over me, a tidal wave of sorrow for the life that would never be. Amidst the pain, Anna shared that Michael had been in an accident too, found not far from where she'd found me. It seemed fate had a cruel sense of irony. He's here, in the hospital. It was his fault, the crash, she said quietly. It wasn't long before a police officer entered my room. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes, introducing himself as Officer Daniels. He pulled up a chair, his demeanor gentle yet professional. Mrs. Thompson, I understand this is a difficult time for you, but I need to ask you some questions about last night. Your sister informed us of the circumstances leading up to your situation, he started, glancing at Anna before turning his attention back to me. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, signaling him to continue. Yes, I'll tell you whatever you need to know. Officer Daniels nodded, taking out a notepad. Can you tell me about the argument you had with your husband? The memories came flooding back, and I recounted the events, my voice steady, despite the pain that throbbed in my heart. We argued about our failing marriage, about his infidelity. And then, when I needed him the most, he abandoned me on the side of the road. The officer's brows furrowed as he scribbled down notes. And he was aware of your condition? That you were pregnant? Yes, he knew. I told him, and he didn't care. He left me there alone, I managed, the bitterness in my voice surprising even me. Officer Daniels's expression softened. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Mrs. Thompson. Based on your account and the preliminary investigation, we're looking into charges of neglect and endangerment against your husband. His actions led to serious consequences for you and the loss of your pregnancy. Anna squeezed my hand, her presence a silent support. The thought of Michael facing consequences for his actions was a cold comfort, but it was justice, however small. What happens now? I asked, the weight of everything crashing down on me all at once. We'll proceed with the investigation, and I'll need you to provide a formal statement when you're ready. We'll do everything we can to ensure your husband is held accountable, Officer Daniels assured me, his voice firm. As he stood to leave, he paused, looking back at me. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Thompson. We'll be in touch. After he left, the room was silent, save for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Anna was the first to break the silence. He'll get what's coming to him, Em. You're not alone in this. The days that followed were a blur of doctors, police statements, and endless hours of trying to piece together a semblance of normalcy. Michael had been charged, and the news of his actions and subsequent arrest made headlines, tarnishing the reputation he valued above all else. After everything settled, the divorce, the court cases, and Michael's downfall, I started to rebuild my life, brick by brick. The compensation and the justice served felt like a cold comfort, but it was closure. The press had a field day with Michael's story, his reputation tarnished beyond repair. He lost his job, his status, and his ability to charm his way through life. As for me, I took it as a sign to start fresh. I found a quaint apartment not too far from the school, a place filled with light and hope, a stark contrast to the shadows of my past. Returning to teaching felt like coming home, the smiles and laughter of my students a balm to my soul. One afternoon, as I was tidying up my classroom, Marie, a fellow teacher and friend, popped her head in. "Hey, Emily, you heading out soon?" "Yeah, just finishing up here," I replied, stacking some papers. She leaned against the doorframe, her expression serious. "You know, we're all really glad you're back. The kids missed you. Hell, we all did." I smiled, touched by her words. "Thanks, Marie. It feels good to be back. Feels like I'm finally moving forward, you know?" Marie nodded, understanding. "You've been through so much, Emily. But you're one of the strongest people I know. You've got this whole new chapter ahead of you now." I chuckled, the idea of a new chapter still feeling a bit surreal. "Yeah, a new chapter. Just gotta make sure it's a good one, right?" "Exactly," she agreed with a grin. "And hey, who knows? Maybe there's a new love story in there too. When you're ready, of course." The thought had crossed my mind, the possibility of opening my heart again. But I knew if that chapter were ever to be written, I'd approach it with more caution, more wisdom. "I'll take my time with that one," I said, my voice steady. "But for now, my heart's full enough with these kids and getting my life back on track." Marie nodded, pushing off from the doorframe. "Well, just know we've got your back, Emily. Through thick and thin." As she left, her words lingered in the air, a reminder of the support system I had around me. My journey hadn't been easy, and the scars would always be a part of me. But as I looked out at the empty classroom, filled with the echoes of laughter and learning, I felt a sense of peace. I'm Sarah. Teaching vocal lessons is what gets me up in the morning. At 42, I've seen my share of bright-eyed kids dreaming of the big stage. But it was Emma who brought a twist to my tale. 14, with a voice that needed work but had potential. It was her dad, Jack, though, who flipped my world. "Miss Sarah, my dad's here to pick me up," Emma announced one day, her voice cutting through my thoughts like a sharp knife. I glanced up, expecting the usual parent. But there stood Jack. Not what I expected. Tall, with a look of someone who's seen stuff but kept standing. "Hi, I'm Jack. Emma's been going on about her lessons. You must be Sarah." His voice was straightforward, no frills. I liked that. "Yeah, that's me. Emma's got talent. Just needs a bit more push," I said, offering my hand. His handshake was firm, honest. "Appreciate you helping her out. I'm clueless about this stuff." Her mom was the singer. I caught the past tense. "I'm sorry," I said, the standard response, but his nod told me he'd heard it a million times. "No worries. We're managing. Aren't we, Em?" His look towards Emma was full of that silent communication only parents and kids have. Emma rolled her eyes, the universal kid signal for parents, right, but smiled. "Yeah, we're good." The conversation should have ended there, but Jack lingered. You know, I'm trying to get her more into music. Keep her busy. Her brother too, Alex. Kid's a ball of energy. I laughed. Music's a great outlet. Keeps them focused on something positive. Exactly, Jack agreed. Hey, you ever do group lessons? Or something for a hyper 13-year-old who thinks he's the next big thing? I shrugged. I can handle 13-year-olds. Bring him by. We'll see if music or noise is his thing. Jack chuckled, and that sound did funny things to my stomach. Deal. I'll bring him next time. Thanks, Sarah. As they left, I shook my head, dismissing the fluttery feeling. Jack was just a dad, a widower, trying to raise his kids right. Nothing more. But life, as I found out, loves throwing curveballs. Jack started showing up more, sometimes with Alex, sometimes alone under the pretext of discussing Emma's progress. We'd chat, and those chats started veering off music more often than not. One day, as autumn painted the world in hues of gold and crimson, Jack turned to me, a half smile on his face. Sarah, would you consider going out with me? Like, a date? I blinked, surprised. A date? Yeah, he said, his voice firmer than his casual stance suggested. I like talking to you. The kids like you. And I want to see where this could go. It was unexpected, this shift from casual chats to the possibility of something more. But looking into Jack's earnest eyes, I felt a pull, an interest I hadn't felt in a long time. Okay, Jack. Let's see where this goes. I found myself saying, a smile breaking through my usual reserve. Merging into Jack's world was like stepping onto a stage without a rehearsal. Emma was easy, music was our language. Alex, though, was a different beat, skeptical of the new woman in his dad's life, protective of his sister and the memory of his mom. And then there was Mary, Jack's mom, a matriarch with warmth and sharpness all rolled into one. The day Jack introduced me to Alex, the kid sized me up like I was a new recruit. So, you're the music teacher, Alex said, crossing his arms, his eyes narrowed. It wasn't unfriendly, but it wasn't open arms either. That's me. And you must be the next big thing in music, from what I've heard. I shot back, trying to break the ice with a smile. He cracked a grin, the skepticism in his eyes softening a bit. Maybe. Guess we'll see if you're any good. Challenge accepted, I said, and from there, things started to ease into a rhythm. Alex had energy for days and a curious mind. He didn't take to music like Emma, but he respected the passion behind it. Meeting Mary was another story. She had a reputation for being tough as nails, with a heart of gold hidden somewhere beneath. Walking into her house for the first time, I was greeted with a scrutinizing gaze that could make a seasoned performer sweat. You're Sarah. Heard a lot about you, she started, her voice firm but not unkind. Good things, I hope, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She chuckled, a sound that carried both warmth and a hint of challenge. Depends on who you ask. Sit down. Let's see if you pass the test. The afternoon unfolded with conversations that swung from blunt to deeply personal. Mary didn't hold back, asking about my intentions with her son, my thoughts on family, and my ambitions. It was like a verbal sparring match, but beneath her tough exterior, I saw glimpses of the love she had for her family. Jack's been through a lot. The kids, too. They need stability, not just another person passing through, Mary said, locking eyes with me. I'm not here for a temporary gig, Mary. I care about them. About Jack. I'm in this, I responded, my voice carrying a conviction I felt deep in my bones. She studied me for a moment longer, then nodded, as if I'd passed some unspoken test. Good. They could use someone like you. Just remember, kids and Jack come first. Always. Always, I echoed, understanding the weight of her words. As months turned into a year, my bond with Jack's family deepened. Emma and Alex, each in their own way, started to let me in. We had our moments, disagreements, misunderstandings, the usual family dynamics, but underneath it all was a growing sense of belonging. Jack's proposal came on a quiet evening, after a day filled with laughter and music. It was simple, no grand gestures, just him and me, and a question that promised a new chapter. "Sarah, I've seen you with the kids, with my mom, with me. You've become a part of us, a part we didn't even know was missing. Marry me? Let's make this official." I looked at him, at the man who had become my unexpected harmony, and without a moment's hesitation, I said, "Yes." The wedding was small, an intimate affair with those who mattered most. Mary, despite her tough exterior, shed a few tears, whispering, "Take care of them, Sarah. You're family now." And as I looked around at my new family, Jack, Emma, Alex, and Mary, I realized I wasn't just stepping into their lives, we were creating a new melody together. One that had its dissonances, but was ours, uniquely beautiful in its complexity. Life with Jack and the kids had settled into a sort of comfortable routine, filled with school runs, music lessons, and family dinners. But as life tends to do, it threw us a curveball that changed everything. Mary's health took a nosedive, leaving her paralyzed and in need of constant care. Jack decided the best thing was to move her into our home. It made sense, but I don't think any of us were truly prepared for the impact it would have. From the get-go, the weight of caring for Mary fell heavily on my shoulders. Jack was caught up with work, and the kids, well, they were still kids. I didn't mind at first, Mary was family, after all. But as time went on, the strain began to show. One particularly tough day, after a grueling session of trying to get Mary comfortable and dealing with a mountain of household chores, I sat down at the kitchen table, feeling utterly defeated. Mary had been particularly difficult, refusing to eat or take her medication, and Jack had been no help, locked away in his office. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Jack come in. He stood there, watching me, an unreadable expression on his face. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, his voice void of the warmth it once held. I braced myself, knowing this conversation wouldn't be good. "What's up?" "It's about my mom. And you. You seem off lately. Not handling things as well as you used to." I stared at him, incredulous. "Off? Jack, I'm doing everything I can. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm trying to be there for your mom, for the kids, for you. And it's never enough." He took a step back, as if my words were physical blows. "I know you're trying, but it's not just about effort, Sarah. It's about results. And right now, we're not seeing them." His words were like a slap in the face. Results. As if I was just another employee failing to meet my targets, not his wife, struggling to keep our family together. Years rolled by, each one more challenging than the last. Mary's condition didn't improve, and my relationship with Jack and the kids, especially as they grew into adults, became more strained. The once vibrant connection I shared with Emma and Alex, built on music and mutual respect, faded into polite indifference. Then Mary passed away. It was a difficult time for all of us, a period marked by grief and reflection. I thought, naively, that maybe this would bring us closer, that shared sorrow would mend the cracks in our family. But I was wrong. After the funeral, things took a turn for the worse. Jack's demeanor changed overnight. The man who once looked at me with love and gratitude now regarded me with disdain. "You're just not the same anymore, Sarah," Jack snapped one evening, his words laced with a bitterness that caught me off guard. "You've let yourself go. You're old, you're ugly. I'm tired of you." I stood there, shocked. His harsh words felt like a physical blow, leaving me speechless and hurt. "Jack, how can you say that? After everything?" I started, but he cut me off. "Everything? You mean taking care of my kids and my mother? That was your job, Sarah. I tolerated you because you did the chores, nothing more." His words were like a knife, twisting deeper with each syllable. And the kids, now adults, weren't any better. Emma, once my closest ally, turned cold. "You really have no one but us, and you're pushing even us away. You're just a lonely, useless woman," she said, her voice void of the warmth it once held. Alex was no kinder, seizing every opportunity to belittle me. You should be grateful we even let you stay here, he sneered whenever he passed me in the hall. I couldn't believe these were the same people I had loved and cared for, had considered my family. The transformation was stark, their contempt for me a constant reminder of how much had changed. It wasn't just the emotional toll, my body began to betray me too. My legs, once strong and sure, now ached with a pain that made every step a chore. The doctor's words were clinical, detached, but they hit hard. It's chronic, he said, scribbling something on his pad. You'll need to manage it, adjust your activities. Adjust my activities. As if my life wasn't already a series of adjustments, concessions to a family that saw me as nothing more than a burden. One day, as I struggled to stand after a long bout of cleaning, Jack walked in, his eyes scanning the room, always looking for something to criticize. What's wrong with you now? He asked, his voice dripping with impatience. I tried to steady myself, to push past the pain. My legs, I started. They'd been really bad today. The doctor said. He cut me off with a wave of his hand, a dismissive gesture that felt like a slap. Always something with you, isn't it? Can't even rely on you to do the basic chores around here without making a big deal out of it. Teaching at the private school, my passion and my escape, became impossible. Jack's reaction to my diagnosis was as cold as ice. So, what? You're just going to sit around all day now? Great, another mouth to feed without any use. He sneered the day I told him about my condition, his words cutting deeper than the sharp pain in my legs. I wanted to scream, to tell him how much he was hurting me, but I knew it would only make things worse. So, I bit back the pain and the tears, trying to find some way to navigate this new reality. Living in Jack's house became a daily reminder of my dependence. I was reduced to limping around, trying to keep the house in order, cooking meals that were often met with criticism or indifference. The pain was constant, a sharp reminder of my predicament, but I pushed through, terrified of what would happen if I stopped. Jack and the kids lived as if nothing had changed, as if my struggles were just a minor inconvenience to their lives. The inheritance from Mary's passing seemed to ignite a spending spree, new gadgets, clothes, jewelry, all flaunted in front of me as if to underscore my exclusion from their lives. You should be grateful we're keeping you around, Jack would say, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Without us, you'd be on the street. Remember that. Emma and Alex took their cues from their father, treating me more like an unwanted servant than a stepmother. Don't forget to wash my new jeans, Sarah. Wouldn't want them ruined like you ruin everything else, Emma would toss over her shoulder, her words sharp as knives. Alex was no better. Make sure dinner's on time tonight. We've got places to be, and we can't wait around for you to limp around the kitchen, he'd say, his disdain barely veiled. I harbored fantasies of leaving, of finding some way to reclaim my independence and dignity. But the reality was harsh. With no income, no savings, and a body that betrayed me at every turn, I was stuck. My dreams of escape seemed just that, dreams, distant and unattainable. In the midst of my lowest point, feeling trapped and useless, I stumbled upon something that sparked a flicker of hope in me. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights, scrolling aimlessly through the internet on my old, barely functioning laptop. I found a forum for vocal teachers giving online lessons. The idea struck me like a lightning bolt. The next day, with the house empty and my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear, I set up a makeshift studio in the corner of my room. I wasn't sure if anyone would be interested, but I had to try. I recorded a simple introduction video, my voice shaky but determined, and posted it online. To my astonishment, inquiries started coming in. People were interested in learning from me, despite my physical limitations. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt valued for my skills and knowledge. Jack and the kids noticed the change in me, but didn't know the cause. What's got into you? Jack asked one evening, his tone suspicious as he caught me humming while preparing dinner. Just feeling a bit better today, I replied, keeping my eyes on the task at hand, hiding the fear that he would disapprove or, worse, try to stop me. He snorted, dismissing my response. Well, don't get too happy. You've still got your duties around here. I nodded, my heart sinking, but I didn't let his words deter me. The hours I spent teaching online became my sanctuary, a place where I could be myself, share my love for music, and forget, even if just for a little while, the pain and humiliation I endured daily. I invested the little money I made from teaching into better equipment, slowly but surely building my online presence. The physical pain was still there, a constant reminder of my limitations, but when I was teaching, it receded into the background, overshadowed by the joy of connecting with my students. As the months went by, I took a moment to look at the numbers, something I had been avoiding, afraid to jinx it. But there it was, clear as day on my screen. I was making money. Real money. More than I ever made teaching at the private school. More than I ever thought possible from the confines of this oppressive house. And shockingly, more than Jack made with his so-called prestigious job. I remember sitting there, staring at the figures, a mix of disbelief and triumph washing over me. For so long, I had felt like a burden, a financial leech in Jack's eyes, but here I was, earning my own way, and not just scraping by but actually doing better than him. For a moment, I let myself bask in the success, allowing the numbers to speak for themselves. I was doing this. I was making it happen, despite everything that had been thrown my way. It was a silent victory, one I couldn't share with anyone in the house, but it was mine all the same. The betrayal that came was not just a single moment of cruelty, but a culmination of years of disregard and contempt, crystallized into one devastating dinner conversation. There we were, sitting around the table, me serving them as I always did, when Jack decided to drop his bombshell with a smirk that I had come to loathe. I got promoted at work, he started, and for a brief, foolish moment, I thought maybe this was good news, something positive for once. But then he continued. So, I bought a new house. A better one, fitting for my status. That's when the air around me grew cold, my hand stilled, the plate I was holding nearly slipping from my grasp. Before I could even muster a congratulations, he landed his cruel blow. And I'll be moving there with the kids. Not you. You're not coming. His words were like a slap, but the mocking laugh that followed was a knife to the heart. I mean, come on, Sarah. Did you really think you'd fit in? An old limp like you? No, it's time I found someone younger, more suitable. The laughter that erupted from Emma cut even deeper. Yeah, and guess what? This old house? Sold. Enjoy the streets, Sarah. I stood there, frozen, as he slid the divorce papers across the table. The audacity, the sheer coldness of it all, was staggering. Yet, as I looked at those papers, something within me refused to break. I didn't cry, didn't plead. I simply signed them, each stroke of my name a silent vow to myself. When morning came, I was ready. Jack and the kids watched with a mix of surprise and that familiar contempt as I hauled my bags to the door. Their parting words were meant to wound, to kick me when I was down. Hope you like the flophouses, Sarah, Jack sneered, a cruel smile playing on his lips. But I walked out of that house with my head held high, the weight of their insults falling away with each step I took. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of freedom, a clarity that had been missing from my life. Settling into my new rented apartment was like breathing fresh air for the first time in years. It was my space, my sanctuary, where I could dive into my online vocal teaching without looking over my shoulder. Hearing from friends, I found out Jack had moved into that fancy new house with the kids. True to form, instead of being smart with the money from the old house, they blew it on all sorts of nonsense. Typical. That's when I decided to play my hand. Over the years, I'd saved voicemails and recorded moments of their verbal lashings, a dark library of the abuse I suffered. Without a second thought, I sent them off to Jack's boss. It felt like releasing doves into a storm, but these birds carried grenades. The call I got from Jack after was music to my ears, but not the kind I usually taught. Sarah, what have you done? He screamed into the phone, his voice a mix of rage and panic. "They're demoting me, cutting my salary. How could you?" In the background, I could hear Emma and Alex, their voices shrill, hurling insults my way. But their words felt distant, inconsequential. "Oh, Jack," I said, a laugh bubbling up. "Looks like you're the one who might end up without a roof over your head. Meanwhile, I'm here, thinking about buying my own place." How the tables have turned. The silence that followed was sweet, filled with their disbelief and shock. Then Jack, ever the beggar now, started his plea. "Sarah, please, you have to help us. We could lose the house. The kids, think about the kids. We'll take you back, I swear. We'll do anything." Hearing them grovel, offering to take me back as if they were doing me a favor, was the cherry on top. Take me back? To be your maid again? No, thanks. I've got better things to do. Hanging up the phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a final closure to a chapter of my life that had brought me nothing but pain. They were desperate, flailing in the mess they'd made, and for once, I wasn't there to clean it up. Through the grapevine, friends let slip that Jack, along with Emma and Alex, had been evicted. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage, they said. Now, they were crammed into some small apartment, the kids juggling jobs to make ends meet. The twist of fate wasn't lost on me. After everything they put me through, there was a bitter taste of justice in the air. Can you believe it? I mused aloud during a call with one of my closest friends from the teaching community, Lena. Jack and the kids, scrambling to keep a roof over their heads. After all that talk about me ending up in a flophouse. Lena's laugh crackled through the phone. "Karma's a real kicker, ain't it? You, on the other hand, are living proof that what goes around comes around. You're doing amazing, Sarah." Then came the opportunity of a lifetime. A well-known music school reached out, having heard of my teaching success. They offered me a position, not just as a teacher, but as a coordinator for their online program. It was more than a job, it was recognition, a chance to influence and inspire on a scale I had never imagined. As I sat down to sign the contract, a wave of gratitude washed over me. To think, not so long ago, I was convinced my life had crumbled beyond repair. And now, here I was, signing a contract that was not just a job offer, but a symbol of my journey from darkness into light. The celebration that night was simple. Just me and a few close friends I had made along the way, including Lena, who had quickly become a pillar of support and friendship. As we raised our glasses in a toast, Lena leaned over and whispered, "You're an inspiration, Sarah. You've turned your life into a symphony of success." Her words struck a chord, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion. "Thank you, Lena. It's been quite the journey. But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. The hardships, the pain, it all led me here, to this moment, to a life I can be proud of." As the night wore on, filled with music and laughter, I realized that this was more than just a new chapter, it was a whole new book, a story of triumph over adversity, of finding harmony in the chaos.